A very warm welcome to everyone present here. This is the first episode of our podcast, Off the Woodwork. This is presented to you by The Goal Story, which is a platform dedicated to bring about a grassroots revolution in the Indian football scene. This podcast is dedicated to bring you everything football, from news, transfers, rumors, all the way to banter, memes, and everything in between. So, football is not just a game. It's more than that. It's considered to be a religion of its own because no religion has this many disciples as are the number of followers of football. In keeping the spirit in mind, we want to bring forward to the people who are interested in football a bi-weekly football podcast, which is completely dedicated to all sorts of football news, transfers, everything to satisfy your daily football hunger. So without any further ado, let's bring on the panelists who are going to discuss in today's episode the different football transfers that happened over the week, a game week analysis, and a little bit of fun at the end. So let's do this. So introducing the guests and the panelists for today's evening. We are having Trishit Ghosh, we are having Priyanshu Borua, we are having Mangshu Bora, and we are having Chaminda Kaum. So first and foremost, welcome to the podcast. We are really excited to get started. And without any further ado, let me put onto the table news that has been rocking on this week. The exceptional transfer of James Rodriguez from Real Madrid to Everton for a peanut sum of £22 million for a player of his quality. So panel, open to discussion, what you think about the transfer and what is going to happen to him in the upcoming first year of Premier League football. Trishita, with you.
Hi, Mayuk. It's a very other occasion like to speak on James Rodriguez, the wonder kid of 2014 World Cup. I think Everton got him for free, on a free transfer really, but I think they will have a sell on, which Real Madrid will get if Everton decides to sell him after his 2-year contract or 2+1 is being finalized. So I was surprised at the fact that he decided to move to Premier League after being devoid of playing minutes at Real Madrid. So I want to know from the other guys in the panel as to why James Rodriguez didn't work out in La Liga, especially in the last few years.
Yep. Anybody want to jump onto that? Bora?
Okay. The main thing I think is Real Madrid employed a 4-3-3 formation that clearly favored Cristiano Ronaldo as the main man. So there was no place for a number 10. We have all seen the declining role of number 10s in the modern game of football. Like you could name a Mesut Ozil or a Mauro Götze. Like all of them had been big stars, and they have faded out of the game literally. So James Rodriguez, I think it's a brave move for him to move to Everton. Giving up on the stardom of Real Madrid and moving to Everton. And I think this move is really going to favor him because he has decided to pair up with Carlo Ancelotti again, the man who has coached him both in Real Madrid and in Bayern Munich. And I think he's going to be the main man at Everton this thing.
Okay. Chaminda, you want to say something?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, from a business perspective, it's a banger of a move. Absolutely a bargain at such price point, especially in such an inflated market. So, and from a gameplay point of view, I think Carlo Ancelotti has a very good idea about how to use the potential of James Rodriguez properly. So he's a natural attacking talent. Of course, he lacks some of the defensive work ethics, and that's why probably Zidane decided not to play him as their main man. Because in high intensity matches, as we have often seen in modern day game, it requires high work ethic in the defensive side. I think Carlo Ancelotti has already shown us how he will implement James' role as a playmaker. Yesterday itself, he started on the right wing, then he started shifting inwards to started playing as a main attacker and main number 10 position. Yeah, and for the defensive backup, he has some incredible talent at the midfield for the defensive cover to provide for the defense line. He has some new acquisitions, and with Andre Gomez and Rocore and players like that, he will be able to match the necessity of balance for great success in the Premier League in the long run.
Okay. We have with us Priyanshu Barua, who is a hardcore Real Madrid fan. So, Priyanshu, are you sad to see James leave?
Actually sad and happy also, because sad because a stature of a player of like James Rodriguez leaving for the Premier League for such a small amount, and as we have bought him for 80 million euros, and he was the part of the Galactico era that under Zidane. So seeing him leaving for the Real Madrid for Everton for such a small amount actually makes me piss off, and I'm also happy for him because he almost flourished under Carlo Ancelotti, and now playing under him will be a great move for him towards the new phase of his career. Actually, I want to say that. And the reasons why he didn't work out at Real Madrid is because Zidane wanted to include Isco. During the end of 2016-17 season, Isco was in terrific form, and also the inclusion of Casemiro left out James Rodriguez, and he moved to Bayern the following seasons. And after remaining there 2 seasons, he wanted to leave Real Madrid, but last year the move didn't work out, and now he's leaving and now he has left for Everton finally.
But the point I wanted to share was like his move back 6 years ago was massive. Okay, so the off the pitch impact was big. The publicity was quite like out of the blue. And yesterday also I saw many of the Colombians wearing Everton T-shirts on the streets in Bogota, chanting Hamish's name. And his social media following, his social media footprint is so massive. I think Everton deserved like play off his stature. And I think if Ancelotti can use him, deploy him in the correct formation, and if he gels up well with the likes of Doucouré, Gomez, and Allen, James Rodriguez would be the man regarding like he would be the midfield pivot or the main midfield guy around which this team would be built for the next 3 years before Everton moves to the new stadium in 2022. So yeah, I see them finishing top 10.
Yeah. So I guess the main question will be to see if when a world-class player transfers to a normal club, does a world-class player become a normal player, or does a normal club become a world-class club? That question will be answered. Yeah. That question will be answered in this year's Premier League season. Now moving on. We are having Trishit Ghosh here with a hardcore Chelsea fan. So before we can move on to something else, I just want to ask you this question: why are Chelsea on transfer steroids?
It was quite expected over time because we were suffering for a long period of time. We didn't had a defensive overhaul since Conte's first season. Emerson was the last guy who was signed, and Emerson didn't work out. So everyone knows of the fragilities of Marcos Alonso. So basically, we needed a left back, and the centre backs and Kepa Arrizabalaga, our goalkeeper, had a very horrid season. 54 Premier League goals conceded, which is the highest in Roman era, as well as Lampard lost the highest number of matches in the Premier League since Roman took over the club. So it was a shit show, I would say. So I didn't trust any of them. Before the season began, I thought like 2-3 of them, like Tomori, Zuma, would cement their places, and Rudiger would fade away. I knew that Rudiger faded away as expected. Christensen was a budding talent in the academy, and I thought, yeah, maybe it was time for him. But yeah, he didn't live up to the billing. I thought Kurt Zuma was the best centre back we had, and we needed someone experienced. We got Thiago Silva for free. That was a good transfer move, and I think we were quite solid at right back. We don't need any replenishment still. Cesar Azpilicueta retires or part ways with the club. But I think the main talking point is the attacking third. Kai Havertz in the middle midfield. He's versatile. He can play anywhere. Hakim Ziyech, Timo Werner up front, as well as Pulisic was signed a year back. So yeah, it's a very decent the window was good. It was they were on a shopping spree. Lampard got his fill, and Peter Cech played his part in deciding the players, and he robbed in the correct. I think he robbed in the key targets, the primary targets, and and Marina was great. She does what she does, and she pulled it off. She's a hardcore negotiator, the right hand woman we say of Roman, and it's good to see two Germans at the club. Although
But
I
then
don't have
again,
much high expectations.
then again, if you go by the history of Germans playing in
Yeah.
Premier League, probably the last successful German who migrated from the Bundesliga and had a successful career in Premier League was Michael Ballack.
Yeah.
After that, we just had failures. All right. Also, like just splashing the cash does not replicate into success. And I think as a Real Madrid fan, Priyanshuda knows that the best, right? So, what's your opinion about Chelsea?
Even Barcelona guys knows it as well. They spent 250 million.
All right,
they didn't win the UCL.
What Barcelona? This question is opened up to both the Barcelona and the Real Madrid fans here. So, what are your guys' opinions about where do you see Chelsea ending up this season? Priyanshuda.
Priyanshu, you start.
I think Chelsea would definitely go for a top 4 position this season, because with players like this, like Kai Havertz, he's a generational talent, and he's a Zidane plus Ozil type player. So I think with the help of him and also the addition of Timo Werner and under the leadership of Thiago Silva, Chelsea can definitely finish in the top 4 this season.
Okay, Saminada?
Yeah, in my opinion, definitely not first or second position. They'll need time to adapt with this new setup. So definitely it will take 1 or 1.5 seasons. But I think third or fourth is a realistic target for Chelsea to achieve this season. I think they'll do great. They'll display great show of talent. They have great pace up ahead. So I think they'll do quite, but not right now. Not at the level of something like Liverpool or Manchester City. I think it will take time.
Yeah.
Okay, so with this influx of great players, there have been an exodus from Chelsea also, and one of the big names that left the club this year was Willian, who went to Himanshu's club, Arsenal. Right, and right away off the bat in the first match, we can see the creative influence Willian brings onto the game. All right, so Himanshu, how optimistic are you with your new starman? Like, especially given, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen with Ozil this year, but do you think like Willian is the answer to your questions?
I'm really excited because Willian is a top class talent. He is a proven talent in the Premier League. Like he's a well settled player in England. He has played a lot of seasons under Chelsea. He's a well settled man in London. He has a great partnership with David Luiz. I guess he owns a restaurant in London with David Luiz. So the Brazilian connection is there. And I guess Willian could be one of the bargain transfers of this summer transfer window, because we needed a proven winner. Like Willian is a proven winner with Chelsea. He has won a lot of trophies there, and he has that winning mentality. He has that in him to propel Arsenal to the the glory heights that Arsenal were once known for. Okay. So I think he's a great transfer, and he proved that in the field.
I would like to add one point to that. He said like regarding his hunger, he has a tremendous hunger. Like his winning mentality, which Arteta said last night in the press conference after the match. I think on Saturday, he said his winning mentality, hunger for trophies, makes this particular project much more desirable for other players to come in. Like Gabriel came in because there was a lot of expectation that Aubameyang would stay. They would bring in Ceballos again on loan from Real Madrid. Willian coming in. They secured Cedric at right back in January. So a lot of expectation is there from Willian. And what he did against Fulham was no mean feat. That guy completed more than 95% of his passes in the attacking third during the whole match. It's just not a mean feat for someone playing on the flanks, and he's not young. He doesn't have the pace maybe, but he's technically sound. So what Chelsea fans desired of him at times was he lacked creativity, and like he couldn't lay off balls to Diego Costa or set up Eden Hazard. Willian has lived up to his billing in the last couple of years at Chelsea. He has delivered winning performances. He has single-handedly won matches, changed while he came off the bench. And he was a big part of Chelsea for a long part of this decade. And I think he definitely makes Arteta's team a lot stronger. But yeah, I think it makes someone more insecure. Someone like Nicolas Pepe. I would say Pepe's place at right wing is a little bit insecure now since Willian is there. It's all up to Arteta how he adjusts his team and ensures everyone gets the playing minutes.
All I can say is like watch out all the Arsenal free kicks this year because this is going to be a Willian boom.
Yeah, Willian is a great player to have in FPL because he's going to take all the set pieces. So mind you, he's a great addition to your FPL team.
Yeah. So now moving from Premier League to say the La Liga, the other famous league in Europe. So Chaminda, what's happening with Barcelona? Are you letting go of the biter or no?
Well, it's a kind of a messy situation right now.
Oh, pun intended.
Yeah. So I can't say much about the situation right now. It's highly unlikely that anything drastic will take place in this summer transfer window. So
Because,
I don't think.
wait, just a second. The tabloids were going crazy today because it has been speculated that the Barcelona directors have given Ronald Koeman a full green light to go and splurge as much as he can to bring in Mohamed Salah. So
that's funny because the thing is, Luis Suarez is waiting his move to Juventus, as per reports in Italy to suggest, and he's waiting for his examination because he doesn't have a Euro passport. His wife does, and that's eligible for playing football in Spain, but not in Italy. And he's preparing for that exam, which is scheduled on Thursday, which I've heard of from Sky Italy. But I think Luis Suarez is a top priority target for Juventus and Barcelona. If they meet the demands of Luis Suarez, they should let him go.
Okay.
Exactly.
I don't see him a future. I don't see a future.
Exactly. Me too. I don't think one might decide to keep Suarez for a longer run because it will be better for both the interests of the player and also for the club for him to leave for Juventus. So I think he will get 2 more years at the top level.
You don't seem too much optimistic.
Definitely not optimistic right now.
Okay, not too optimistic to win the league this year, right?
It's a far for something that I can't even think of right now.
Okay, and Priyanshu,
but the Salah situation is still complicated. I don't think any move will be possible this summer. Okay. I don't think so.
And Priyanshu, anybody coming into the Bernabeu this summer other than Gianni Terror or anyone?
No one. Right? No
only
one.
Only a fat Hazard.
Yeah.
They are definitely saving for someone big.
Yeah, they are trying to. They're trying to make it. They're trying to make it Zidane FC, like Abidal made it Abidal FC at Barcelona. They're targeting the French, who the French Revolution.
French Revolution.
So
being a Newcastle fan, I know all about.
After some years, it will not be Real Madrid here. It will be France here. As we are targeting three superstars.
Being a Newcastle fan, I know all about the French Revolution. All right, and let me tell you, it does not end well always. Okay, maybe for
Athens and Arfa and Gufran.
Half of the team was French at the time. All right. So moving on to our last topic. Last topic for
still no one can match the Wolves and Portugal connection. That's still right up there.
That is up there, man. And that is, I think, beneficial for both Wolves and for Portugal at the same time. All right.
The thing is that every Portugal player is now hiding from Nuno. They're hiding from Nuno's rep. They're something out of the blue. This guy, something out of the blue, Nuno Espirito Santo. He has signed a 3-year contract, we have heard, but I think he's trying to build a very good team. And with no European football this season, I think Wolves definitely has a chance to finish top 6 because the core is intact and they have replenished their squad from the under-23s. And the key player to watch out for is still Diogo Jota. I think Jota was a very big part of why they qualified for Europe. He faded away in the second half of last season, and I still believe Jota holds the key to Wolves getting to Europe.
Okay, so moving on to the last topic for our transfer talk and overall like international football talk. So my
Yeah.
club, Newcastle United, as you know that the owner has now decided to take legal action against the Premier League's decision to reject the bid. All right, so I want to open it up to the panel because for the first time, I've been following Newcastle
Yeah.
from almost 12 years. All right, and for the first time in my life, I'm optimistic about the team, and I was pleasantly surprised when Mike Ashley finally decided to splash the cash this year because I was not expecting that. I was completely ready for a relegation scrap battle this time. But bringing in Callum Wilson, bringing in a highly rated Jamal Lewis, and also Ryan Fraser with that experience, and Jeff Hendricks, who has already showed his class in the first match, I'm really optimistic about it, and I just feel like Ashley is like investing more in the club so that he can increase the value of the club so that it becomes a more sellable prospect in the upcoming season. What's your take on that? And what
Exactly.
if the legal action, like I want to take your idea on that too. If the legal action goes in favor of Newcastle, do we see the bid coming back and a takeover happening? Open to the panel.
Even if the bid, even if the Premier League is found guilty, I think the consortium would again bid for Newcastle. Regardless of that, Amanda is preparing for a bid. I think before Christmas or after Christmas, whatever the situation regarding the pandemic and all pans out, they're waiting. They're waiting for their chance, maybe. But make no mistake, even free transfers were in demand this summer because of the financial crunch, and they robbed in Jeff Hendrick from Burnley. Hendrick was brilliant Hendrick was brilliant this weekend, as well as he put in shifts for Sean Dyche over the past couple of years. That guy is another Willian, you can say. He runs down the flanks. He can secure the channel. He can go on an underlap with wing backs overlapping him. So Jeff Hendrick is the one to watch out for. Even if they've signed Fraser and Jamal Lewis. But still, the key thing to the Newcastle puzzle this season would be Callum Wilson. He can do anything a centre forward does, run in the channel, touches in the box. He's a proper poacher, played for England, quite experienced guy. And he was fantastic for Bournemouth. He was fantastic with England as well in the World Cup. But he was unlucky. But I think, this move is really the key to solving the puzzle for Newcastle United.
Okay, and given we are in our first episode and it is game week 1 that has just happened, I would just quickly like to take from the panel their top 6 prediction of the Premier League. So, Trishita, your top 6 for Premier League this season.
My top 6 would be someone like Man City or Liverpool would win the league.
No, just give a prediction like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Just give the names.
Okay, one would be like probably Man City would win the league. Liverpool would be second. Chelsea third. Arsenal fourth. Manchester United fifth. And I definitely see Wolverhampton Wanderers finishing sixth.
Okay, Bora.
Yeah, I'd go for Liverpool with the title again. Second would be Man City. Third, Arsenal. Fourth, Chelsea. Fifth, United, and sixth, maybe Everton or Wolverhampton Wanderers. Anybody could come in that sixth position.
Okay, Chaminda.
I think it'll be City, Pool, then Chelsea, United, maybe Arsenal, then, and Wolves. I'm rooting for Wolves this time.
Okay, Priyanshula?
First is Liverpool. Second is City. Third is maybe Chelsea. Fourth is Arsenal. Fifth is United. And for sixth, I am rooting for Leeds United.
Okay, man.
Oh, you're not rooting. You're not rooting for the guy behind you.
No. They won't finish.
Looks like Spurs is nowhere in the scene right now.
He's scared. He's scared. Priyanshu is scared, man.
Okay, believe me.
I'm scared of Bielsa.
Believe me. Okay, so for me, I think Liverpool will win the league, and I just have the feeling that in number 2 will be the position to look after. Like it will be a very close match, but I hope Manchester City will be finishing there. I do honestly feel that somewhere or the other way, like Arsenal might not end up in 4th. Either they will be in 3rd or they will be in 5th. Okay, so for the timing, let's keep Arsenal at 3rd. Okay, Chelsea 4th, maybe United or Tottenham at 5. And 6, I'm very hopeful it should be Leeds because they have been phenomenal. So that's our time with
Yeah, even I
international
feel
football.
so.
That's our time with international football news. So let's go a bit close to our hearts, close to our land, close to our motherland. So what's happening with the Indian football scene? Rishita, if you can enlighten us, is the I League happening? When is it starting? When is the ISL starting? What are the changes? How it's going to be played? Everything you can throw at us. Enlighten us.
Okay, okay. The thing is, let's start with the AFC Cup, AFC competitions first. I would like to highlight on the fact that Asian Football Confederation has decided to cancel the Under 16 tournament, which India was participating in this November. It will be held next year. But the FIFA Under 17 World Cup is still underway, and it will be maybe there will be no crowds in February. Uh, 4 cities have been finalized till now: Kolkata, Guwahati, Navi Mumbai, and Ahmedabad. But there has been no notification from FIFA about the competition being postponed. And AFC Cup, which is the so-called Europa League of Asia, in which 2018-19 season I-League winners Chennai City FC was participating in. It has been cancelled at the group stages because it can't be held in a centralized location this season. The Champions League is starting on tomorrow, like as in 15th of September this year again, on a centralized location in Doha. And moving to Indian football is beginning with the I-League second division, because AFC has made it very clear for Indian football to thrive, it needs relegation and promotion, which is not happening currently from I-League, which is the second tier, to ISL, the first tier. But from the third tier to the second tier, it has to definitely happen. So I think I-League second division will be held this year in Kolkata at a centralized location. 4 stadiums have been finalized near like in Kolkata itself. It will be a biosecure bubble. 5 teams will be participating in it. One of them is like they are quite favorites. They've been active in the transfer window. Mohammedan Sporting, the biggest of them, and then comes another Kolkata club, Bhawanipur FC. The third club is FC Bengaluru United. Gormangi Singh, ex-Indian defender, is the gaffer. And the fourth club is from Delhi, New Delhi, the Garhwal Heroes. They've recently changed their name, Garhwal FC. And the fifth club is still not certain, but we are hoping RIFC, Ahmedabad Racket Academy, would be the fifth team because they have spent as well as they have signed in a few new players. So it will be a tough competition for one team to go through to I-League next season. Sudeva has won the bid to participate in I-League this season. They are coming in to replace Mohun Bagan, who has merged with ATK, the champions last year. And so I think this is a very big thing for football in general in Delhi, because they didn't have any participant in I-League or ISL the past season, because Delhi Dynamo shifted base to Odisha. And so it's a very big thing for Delhi. And I think after that, ISL starts on 21st November at a centralized location again in Goa, at the biosecure bubble at 4 locations, 10 training grounds. Teams are scheduled to reach Goa on September 25th. I think the squad registration has to be completed before October 23rd. And so I-League is not decided yet, but it will be held in December.
Okay. And Bora, you have any information on the Indian transfer end?
Yeah, the big name that attracts me is Sandesh Jhingan, like the big defender, the big central defender from India. He has been released by Kerala Blasters FC. So it is a bit of a surprise, I guess, because he has been the most capped player for the Yellow Army. He has I guess 78 caps for Kerala Blasters, and he has played 6 seasons for them. And I think the main reason for letting him go could be the ACL injury that he suffered during the during the friendly against Northeast United FC. So that could be a reason for letting him go. But I think it's a gain for Sandesh Jhingan, because now he's 27 and it's time for him to move into move his maybe a foreign club, or maybe a club like a ATK or a FC Goa who plays in the Continental Championships. Because Sandesh Jhingan, he has seen it all. He has played in the I-League, he has played in the ISL. And I think for Indian football to progress, I think more Indian players have to move to foreign clubs. And by foreign clubs, I do not mean just European, like moving into Europe. Like say the J League is progressing very well. Like clubs like Vissel Kobe, they have been doing very well. They have signed some big names. Like Lucas Podolski had played there, so big names there. Or even maybe the
Iniesta
Qatar
also.
League. Yeah, Iniesta. So maybe the Qatar League. So I think Indian players need to be moving there to enhance their chances of growing, because I
Hmm.
think Sandesh Jingan has seen it all here. Players like Sandesh Jingan or Anirudh Thapa, I think they should make that big move. No, they should be a little brave and they should move. I guess to maybe the maybe to a foreign club where they can let them, which can help them grow and which can help them play with better players maybe. Yeah.
They can earn the experience which Gurpreet and Sunil got by playing in America, USA or in Norway. These guys need to get that thing. Sandesh Jingan especially got an offer. He had an offer for trial this summer at Motherwell,
Yeah,
Scotland.
of course.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. So, but the thing is, due to the pandemic, maybe, and as well as the financial crunch, they didn't the talks with his agents stopped suddenly. He was in talks with the Bundesliga 2 club and a Qatari club as well. But the Qatari connection is not assured; it's just rumor. But he was definitely in touch with clubs in Spain and Germany. But I think Sanjay Jingan deserves to play, man, because Jingan is the mainstay for the next 4, 5, 6, 7 years in defense. If India plays a three-man backline, Sanjay Jingan plays. If India plays a two-man backline, like a four-man backline, Sanjay Jingan still plays. So
India's
I think
Xavier
Jingan
Zanetti.
deserves to play, man. Yeah,
India's Xavier
exactly.
Zanetti. Yeah, so
Yeah,
also
because
another interesting thing is the replacement that Kerala Blasters signed, Kenstar Kharsong from Shillong
Yeah,
Lajang. Yeah, the
yeah.
21-year center back, and
Mm-hmm.
he's a very highly rated in the Indian football circuit. Okay, people are considering to be the next big
Mm.
thing, and he had put in some like blistering performances for Shillong Lajang in the last season. So,
Yeah.
what's your opinion on that? Like, how do you think Kerala Blasters will pick
Uh,
up again?
After Chingal was injured, they dropped in Gaikwad. Okay, so Gaikwad is a guy who is known for his long balls, like from the long throw-ins,
throw-ins,
especially.
yeah.
Yeah, and aerial duels. So he played in East Bengal, and he was experienced. He came in, but Kerala Blasters played a different brand of football under Ilko last year. The brand which Northeast played 2 seasons back. But the thing is that if they can't build it from the back, which is the key point of any Ilko Qatari team, then it fades away. And now they have a new gaffer, Kibu Vipuna, who owned the I League with Mohan Bagan. And I think this is a very big move for the kid from Shillong. And I think they have experience. They have experience as well in the back line. They have Hesal Carnero. He's an experienced left back. And I think Kerala Blasters are trying to build because they have a financial crunch. They have a financial crunch. That's why they couldn't extend that contract with Okbeche as well. So Okbeche is in talks now, in advanced talks with Mumbai City FC. Almost the deal is done, but I think there's certain like the official paperwork is not completed. But they are in crunch, and that's why they're trying to bring in new players like Facunda Pereira, the Colombian playmaker, because they're coming on low wages, and they will be important for the budding players coming from the reserves, as well as the ones who have played for India, like KP Rahul, Sahal, Abdul Samad, Jigsan Singh. Jigsan has played in the Under-17 World Cup as well. So these 3-4 guys who have played for India at the youth level, as a senior team, and the Kerala Blasters reserve sides, they will get experience with the new guys coming in. So I've liked the financial recruitment, the model which Kerala Blasters are trying to follow. But it will be a tough season for Kibu Pikuna.
Okay, got it. Shamina, you have something to say about the Indian
Uh,
scenario?
Moving on to the foreign players in the ISL, there's one recent big move that Mumbai City FC have roped in Hugo Bumo, which is a very big name in FC Goa squad. So it's a very big move for the Mumbai-based club, and well, FC Goa has already they have already done their homework in order to replenish their squad. Edward Nogara has moved in, so I think it will be a complete revamp for the FC Goa squad this time. We have seen a very fluent attacking team last season from FC Goa. They have been very ruthless in the attacking third. It will be interesting to see how the newly formed structure of the club holds up to that level of play. They will be also competing in the continental competitions, and at the same time, Mumbai City FC looks like a fresh team in this season. So it will be interesting for to see how Mumbai City adapts to this new team, and I think Mumbai will be one of the teams to watch out for in this season.
Mumbai has robbed in FC Goa Gaffer. The entire back line, I can say, like Murtada Fall, Ahmed Jahu, and Mandar as well. Mandar is the biggest
also,
name, man. He's the biggest name from Goa to play in ISL. He played 100 matches. He was the skipper for 3 years. But this is a very big loss. But FC Goa has a very strong academy. The grassroots is so strong. They have directly replaced them with guys from the academy. Leandro Di Cunha has come in. Then I think Xavier Gama, who was a clone in Hyderabad, is back. He's played forward for there. He didn't get much game time, but he can be sure because the new gaffer, Juan Fernando, who came in this April, he has assured that the FC Goa Academy would be getting priority to play alongside the big Spanish names that came in this summer.
Okay.
Yeah, it seems like Mumbai City FC has a great financial might. So at this moment, it seems like they are just trying to copy the FC Goa brand of football. That was very successful last season. They have seen qualification to the Continental Cups. So I think Mumbai City FC is currently trying to copy that same style of football and to bring success to the coastal region.
Okay. So,
I wanted to pose one question. I wanted to pose one question to you guys. You guys, like in Indian football, we haven't seen long-term contracts being offered. Okay, so we saw three players, Indian players playing the national team, being offered 5-year contracts. So, what's your take? Like Sahal Abdul Samad got a 5-year contract at Kerala Blasters. Shubhashish and Sumit Rathi got a 5-year contract at ATK Mohun Bagan. So, what do you think this does to the morale of a player when he gets a long-term contract? Long-term contracts have been predominant in Europe. So, what changes in India right now then?
So the idea behind a long-term contract, as I feel, it's a bi-directional thing. One, it increases the morale of the player. Two, it shows the vision of a club to a player. For example, if a particular club is signing a particular player for a 5-year deal, they see something in that player. They see, okay, this is going to be the player that is going to take the club to a next level in 5 years. Or this is like a captain material in 5 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Captain material in 5 years. Okay. And this culture was missing in India because of, say, the financial constrictions of different clubs. Because to offer a 5-year contract, you need to have the resources also. All right. Now, with the new sought after investment into Indian football, this enablement has happened of longer term contracts. And I hope to see more in the future too.
Himanshu or Priyanshu, like what's your take on the long-term contracts being offered?
Yeah, I think that's a great move for the Indian leagues, because that's predominantly been missing from the Indian circuit. Like players are offered a 1-year contract or a 2-year contract. Now what does to the team is like there is a lot of instability in the team. Players leave after a year or two. Like if you take the example of Northeast United, like big name signings like Ogbeche, he performed really well. Northeast United finished in the top 4, and they let him go. So what does is that it breaks the morale of the team, because when a big signing like Ogbeche leaves for another club after the back of a good season, so that weakens the team from the core. I think what Indian teams need to do is to hold on to the core of the players, and they need to build on from that. They need to build the team around the core, and that will, I think, help Indian team.
Regarding the image of the team, that's also dependent on how long a player stays. For example, now we colloquially we associate Sunil Chhetri with Bengaluru City FC, right? Because he has stayed there for such a long time. In a similar manner, whenever we think of Chelsea, we think of Lampard or Terry. We think of Roma, we think of Totti. All right, we think of United, we think of Giggs. So some players they become a cult for the club, and that cult is what attracts a loyal amount of fans to the club. So now that this tradition of giving long-term contracts is getting started in Indian leagues and Indian clubs, we can expect to have this sort of a cult players for cult clubs, a club player who is synonymous to a club, and that in a way is going to bring about a loyal batch of fans for that particular club in the coming future.
Exactly. Yeah, true.
Okay.
And
Also,
I completely agree. If we see players constantly moving from one club to another like that, as you have said about Northeast United FC, as a fan of the club, I wanted someone to look up to as my club idol or
Yeah.
club legend.
Yeah.
Even today, I see people commenting on Nicolas Vales's Instagram profile to come back to NUFC.
Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
yeah, people like someone to stay in their club and become a club legend.
Legend. Yeah.
I think only
So
Gallego
if we yeah
I think only Gallego is left with whom you can identify, like as a cult or like someone who has
yeah
played for the club.
yeah.
Only Gallego. Once
Plus
Gallego goes, the identity of the club, I think, is lost.
Yeah.
plus
I mean, they have to rebuild
with a
it.
few players with 5 years contracts, someone can come in and bring a philosophy into a club and put it around those core players. So it can mean a long term success for a club. It's
Okay.
not like one great season and then someone goes out of the club and the philosophy is thrown out of the door. It will be nothing like that. So sustainability is a key factor in this regard.
Okay. Okay. So before we end the Indian discussion panel, I want to put one last question to the panel. It's open to all. Whoever wants to jump in can jump into this. So last year happened a historic merger of Mohan Bagan with ATK. Now it's, I guess, ATK Mohan Bagan, and they will be playing in the next season's ISL, right? So what
Yeah.
happened? What will happen to the Bengal Derby? I mean, Bengal Derby is the biggest thing in Indian football. Has been for the last, I
Yeah,
guess, 100 years.
I guess it will happen. It will happen twice a season
East
again.
Bengal joining
Because
ISL is pretty much inevitable.
Yeah.
It will
yeah,
happen very soon.
because I think FSDL has invited beats from firms, and I think two firms has picked up the beat. One is the East Bengal investor, Sri Cement, and another is a UK firm. The UK firm is just inquiring to like acquire states at the ISL club later on. But I think East Bengal is going to play this season, and ATK Mohan Bagan is also going to play, and the Kolkata Derby will again happen in the Calcutta Football League twice, as well as twice in the ISL. But the main thing is it has hurt a lot of loyal Mariners because I think they feel the identity of the club is a bit swayed and lost in things getting more corporate. They have lost identity, although they retain the logo and the jersey. But it's I think they are getting to terms with it slowly. But initial reaction was very, they were pissed off at the club authorities for merging with ATK. And East Bengal fans, as you know, they never leave a chance to rant about that, or like they leave no stone unturned, man. They leave no stone unturned to show that Mohan Bagan that yeah, you guys have merged with the club. Yeah.
Yeah, got it. So with this, I guess we come to the end of our Indian football news panel. So next up, we're going forward to our game week analysis, where we'll be talking about the must-watch games that happened this week. And man, what a game week it has been. And I think to do justice to it, I have to put forward to the panel the game that happened. Rather, I would say the historic game that happened between Liverpool and Leeds. Oh my God, what a game that was. Like every moment I was looking at the screen, a goal was happening. All right. So panel, I want to take your opinions about it. I mean, I was pleasantly shocked by this Leeds United team. I mean, I knew Bielsa is the maestro when it comes to managing teams and creating tactics and whatnot. But 4-3, they almost drew with Liverpool just for the last penalty to happen. So just pour in your thoughts on this historic game that happened.
From a completely neutral perspective, I wanted a draw. This game deserved a draw, at least for Leeds United.
Yeah,
we wanted a draw. It was cruel to see. It was cruel to see them lose with the penalty by giving away such a cheap penalty at the end.
Yeah, sad.
Actually, I would like to add a point because Premier League is the epitome of competitiveness, and what better way to start it with the champions of the Premier League taking on the champions of the Championship. And I think Bielsa is the godfather. I think he has transformed Leeds into something else, because if you try to decipher what happened last weekend, it's like Jurgen Klopp knew he had to put Calvin Phillips out of the game. He did that. He put on Bobby Firmino, he put on Henderson, but it never stopped them from happening, man. If you look at the the graphics of the match, the attacking sides, Leeds attacked from the left flank as well as the right flank. They created wide overloads. They pinned back Trent Alexander-Arnold. Gomez Gomez couldn't recover in the first half, man. Like, he couldn't recover with the pace of Harrison as well as Bamford, and Van Dijk gave away something like which is never expected, because Leeds knew they had to do was press them hard, the high octane pressing they say in the attacking third, and the wide overload helped Bielsa. He knows that if Calvin Phillips is blocked, his main distribution of the passing range is Calvin Phillips. If Calvin Phillips is stopped by someone, he needs to have an alternative, because Cleach would sometimes come down to help him when Sadio Mane was idling inside, Robertson was going. They had to stop the bombarding of the Liverpool fullbacks. So what Bielsa did was change his tactics within a short span of time, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. He did so before in the Championship, but he again did at the highest stage. He showed them, like, if I don't have a plan A, I have a plan B. Come on, man, beat me here. If the plan B fails, he shifted the game entirely in the second half. They were having possession. They were enjoying a lot of ball up front in the attacking third. Liverpool were looking lackluster in the second half. It was an unfortunate incident which Rodrigo gave away the penalty, and I think it's deserved a point, man.
Yeah, they deserved a point, and most importantly, I must say, like, I have not seen a match of this amount of sheer quality in a long time. Let me just put that
This
up
was
front.
definitely a game of the season contender.
Probably, yes, definitely. Like, what a game that was, like, full octane. And yeah, Pranshu, do you have any opinions about it?
Yeah, from Liverpool's point of view, they managed to take the 3 points eventually, as they have done so well in the past. Their ability to grind out results, even though they are not playing at their level best, is quite visible from the past 2 years. And for Leeds United, this performance of theirs is not going to get unnoticed. The other teams of the Premier League should be aware of the threat that Leeds possesses.
Okay.
One more
Got it.
thing I would like to add,
Yeah.
that we all have seen about Marcelo Bielsa everywhere. Everyone is talking about him. But one more important point to notice, that the Leeds United squad even has some individual brilliance that we have seen in the Harrison goal. It was absolutely brilliant individual effort. So it's not like that. It's only about the coach or only about the game or tactics. It's also about the individual brilliance. Sometimes such individual brilliance can bring in results when nothing else is working. So I think Leeds United can definitely be in the top 10. Definitely in the top 10.
It's said now, a moment to repent. Bobby Firmino just left tracking Calvin Phillips. Calvin Phillips got the ball. Henderson was not inside to block him. Phillips is known for ball distribution in the Championship. He delivered a gem of a ball behind the defensive line. And Joe Gomez was still looking who is coming in the half space. He didn't know that Alexander-Arnold is 1v1 with Harrison. Harrison beat Alexander-Arnold 1v1, and Joe Gomez was left out of gas to catch him up, man. So I think Bielsa knows these things. He has to capitalize. He has to capitalize everything which you have got to get a top finish, because he is someone who is worshipped in Argentina. Okay, but the thing is, he has to prove it. He has to prove it right now, because he has invested, but his score still comprises of the players who have played with him in the Championship. So if Sheffield and Wolves can do that again, people have a belief that Leeds can survive, not only survive, but can vie for the European spots in a year's time.
They can thrive.
But,
they can thrive
yeah,
in this league.
The hope is
Absolutely.
there, exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
And Leeds is always related with, fiery form of football. And that match, it almost looked like, Leeds never left Premier League, and this is the stage where Bielsa proved he's the actual godfather. Now, moving on to the next match is between Arsenal versus Fulham. Now, if I say Leeds, they never look like they left Premier League. Fulham, on the other hand, look like a League One club who got shifted to Premier League. So, Himanshu, will you like to take credit for Arsenal's win against Fulham? Win against Fulham?
I'd like to say I've been impressed with Arsenal, but it was a very comprehensive victory for them because Fulham they were lackluster, and my problem with Fulham is that they did not learn from their relegation 2 seasons ago. Okay, so they did not revamp the squad. They've come with the same backline. They have Tim Ream in the squad. They have Odoi in the squad, and that's mostly the same team that they went down 2 seasons ago. So I think Fulham have a big task ahead of them. I know they play a pretty brand of football. They pass the ball well around. They have good possession, but what is lacking is the incisiveness. No, the threat in the final third. That's been mostly lacking, and also they were not helped by Mitrovic setting out for the major part of the game.
Okay, so the main question that must concern every Arsenal fan. So with the signing of Gabriel, do you think finally your defensive woes are over?
Exactly. I think Gabriel Magalhaes and William Saliba, these two signings could prove to be Arsenal's solution to our lackluster, our defense has been the main problem throughout. So I think William Saliba and Gabriel Magalhaes, one is an 18-year-old and one is a 22-year-old. I think these are a long-term solution for the problem of defense. And Gabriel, I think I have to give credit to Mikel Arteta. He has been very clever. Sorry, my battery is running low. Okay. So I think Arteta has been very clever with the employment of Gabriel. He has played him in the center of a back three with cover of Kieran Tierney on the left and Rob Holding on the right. So there was ample cover for him, even if he made a mistake. And you could see in the beginning stages of the game, there was a miscommunication between him and Leno. That could have led to a goal. Yeah, but Leno did well to cover him. But after that, he grew in confidence. He was very comfortable on the ball. He was playing passes down the left, passes down the right. And an impressive stat to say is he had the most touches in the game. So that's a big thing for a central defender. And it was his debut. So he marked it off with a goal from the Williams header. He was physically very strong aerially. Also on the ground, he showed some good one-on-one defending with Kamara. And I think he is going to prove a very good signing for Arsenal.
Actually, question to Himanshu. What do you think? Will Arteta be holding on to this 3 on the back formation, or will he switch back to the typical 4-3-3 or 4-4-2 formation?
No, I think this 3 at the back formation is going to work for him because we have a lot of problems in defense. Like David Lewis is out with a neck injury. Socrates is out. Callum Chambers is out. So we have a lot of problems going there, and he does not favor William Saliba right in. He does not want to put him right into the squad. So I think Rob Holding, Gabriel, and Kieran Tierney, they are going to be the mainstay centre backs for the starting of the season at least. And with Ainsley Maitland-Niles or a Bukayo Saka covering on the left, and obviously we have Hector Bellerin or Cedric on the right. So I think he's going to play the 5 at the back or 3 at the back and 2 wing backs.
Okay, Trishita, you're saying
coming to that question. Which Shaminda posed now, like about the 3-man backline, I think Arteta will stick because, like to the back 3, because I think Maitland-Niles is very key to that system in which he plays. So he agreed to stay. He got an England call-up. He agreed to stay. Arteta sees him as a first choice left wing back with Kolasinac is no more preferred, I feel so. And Kieran Tierney getting inside, tucking in as LCB. Maitland-Niles is the first choice LTB left wing back. Hector Bellerin and Cedric will be sharing the right wing back responsibility. So Arsenal are planning to offload as well in defense. They are planning to let Socrates go because not only because he's old, he's slow, or he can't shoot. I think they have 35 players, 35 senior players in the squad, and the wages, the amortization is getting into like a very big factor. Why they can't pursue players? Why they can't purchase players like Thomas Partey? They're chasing him. They are chasing our from Lyon. But the total, I think cost or the market value of these 2 players is 110 million euros. So I think they have to let go of few players. They are letting go Martinez. They're getting 20 million. But I think they need to let go Socrates as well as certain other, I would not prefer to say dead dude, but I would like to say certain players who are not more preferred in the Arteta system.
And what about
or the-
Saka? Will you
What
stay?
about
Granit
Saka?
Xhaka. Yeah.
Granit Xhaka
Yeah.
stays. Granit Xhaka is the first choice center midfield again. He proved to be loyal to the coach. He proved like with Ceballos, he has a good partnership. And I was impressed with Elneny as well. Elneny was good on
Elneny
the
was a
ball.
surprise inclusion in the squad.
Yeah, because Ceballos is not match fit, I think so. And Elneny was dazzling because I didn't expect Elneny to play so well. He was distributing the ball, switching the play, as well as he was linking up with Lacazette very well. So I think they have a good combination. They need to sell Torreira. They need to offload Socrates. And I think there will be a very good team to watch.
And
I think
also,
Guendouzi still stays. Guendouzi stays, I think so, because
Yeah, Boda, go on.
yeah, and Elneny has come back from a very good season at, in the Turkish league from Besiktas, you know. So he has been very good there. He has been very instrumental, and now he seems to like have a good shot at the first team because with the double pivot of Denis Ceballos and Granit Xhaka, I think there's a lack of defensive instinct there because Granit Xhaka is a little indisciplined with his defensive aspect. He likes to go go to the ball. He likes to press, and so that keeps him a lot of times out of position. And Denis Ceballos is more of a forward player, I guess. He's more of an attacking player.
Yeah.
So Mohamed Elneny gives that perfect balance, to the Arsenal midfield. So I think he's going to have a real shout.
And I am very pleased. I am very pleased to see Mesut Ozil train again, and I think Ozil still
Will
has
he
a
get
part to
time
play.
this season? Will he get game time this season? Ozil?
Maybe FA Cup, maybe Carabao Cup, maybe.
Okay, let's
Maybe
see.
he has,
Let's see.
but yeah, that's a very
Even Arsenal is playing in the Europa League, so I think Ozil gets time. Ozil will get time slowly, maybe with time, because it's a very cramped season. No, I think Ozil will get playing minutes again because he'll not be sold.
Yeah, because
so-
he'll be in and out of the squad, but I don't think he'll be a regular starter because there's no proper position for Ozil because Arteta favors to play 3 up front and 2 in the midfield. So I don't think Mesut Ozil fits in that formation. So I think he'll be in and out
That's
of
the same.
playing.
That's the same
problem
dilemma
with
which
James
Zidane had
Rodriguez.
with
James
same
Rodriguez.
James
Yeah.
Rodriguez.
Exactly. That is why I told
There is the same problem every number 10 is facing this
exactly.
nowadays.
Yeah. The
Okay.
declining role.
except Lionel Messi.
Lionel Messi can play anywhere in the field.
Right
You
winger,
can put
left
him where
winger,
he'll-
false nine, everything.
Lionel Messi is the only player that can change the club. Anyway, so quickly going into the other results.
There
Okay.
is one more player who can stay at the club.
Anyway, so going into the other results of the week, we have Leicester winning 3-0 against West Brom. Once again, I remember it was back when in the season when Leicester won the Premier League, and there was the ESPN or Star Sports broadcast where the panelists were saying that Jamie Vardy, he scored like 18 goals in that season. He will be a one-season wonder. But man, this man is not looking forward to stop anytime. Already 2 goals in the season. Last year's Golden Boot winner. Very high
He's up
expectations.
for it. He's up for it. Mohamed Salah and Jamie Vardy are up for it. 3 goals in the
exactly.
first match for Salah, 2 for Jamie Vardy. I think they're in for the Golden Boot. Along with
I think Castagna also scored, but thing is, Jamie Vardy is you can't rule out Jamie Vardy, man. He left the English national team because he wanted to take Leicester City back to Europe. And he got them back in the Europa League last season, but they're very close to qualifying for Champions League football, man.
On the last
They were
game,
unlucky.
Yeah.
They were very unlucky, man, because Jamie Vardy is an underdog, a proper underdog, I would say, because his story is like he's a non-professional footballer in his mid-20s, and he came back to the top of the pile, the best league, the epitome of the global leagues, and he's performing day in, day out, scored more than 100 goals in the Foxes shirt. And I think he will not stop. He will not stop, man. He will score goals for fun now.
The one great thing about Jamie Vardy that I especially like is that even in those 2 penalties which he scored, he just likes to put his foot through it. He won't care about the placement or anything. He just wants to rip the net off.
Exactly.
Yeah,
He's a
yeah,
He
proper
power,
overachiever.
power.
yeah, his methods are very crude, but those methods are very, very effective.
Yes, completely agreed. And also, like, yeah, we are very hopeful from Leicester this season. And quickly, if I can get Priyanshu Das' opinion on what do you think, what to expect from Mourinho this season? More excuses?
No, no, no. The first match wasn't up to the mark, but I think Mourinho will. I think he'll go for a Europa League.
Okay.
So top
Let's-
six
But
teams. Okay.
I
Top
think
six,
it was a
top
very
six, I
grim,
don't see.
I think it was a very grim start. They were static. They considered very less fouls. They didn't tackle, and I think it's not expected of a Mourinho team. Eric
The
Dyer
problem
was
with Mourinho is
reckless,
that he has the same old tactics. If he concedes, then he will sit down.
but
Then he sit at the back and then go for a counter.
no, no,
And
it's
after
fine.
that, yeah.
It's fine if his techniques are like same or he has the same backup plan. But when Dominic Calvert-Lewin jumps to that height, you expect a centre back Eric Dyer to jump to the same height. Man was looking at the goal at his goalkeeper. He wasn't aware that a poacher was above him, towering above him. And when the goal happened, he was blaming others. He was reckless, man. Throughout the match, he doesn't contribute to the build-up. I don't think Eric Dyer as centre back, they have any chance of qualifying for Europe. It has to be Sanchez and Toby at the back because Mourinho. I don't know what he sees in Eric Dyer. Visible from the Amazon documentary which I saw a few days back, he prefers Dyer because of only one reason. He says the Tottenham players are very casual. He says the Tottenham players are very friendly towards their rival, and only Eric Dyer possesses that warrior feel, or that he brings that hatred towards the. For that reason, you can't play football, man. If he finds that as a reason of starting Dyer over Sanchez, I think it's a lame excuse, man. It's a lame excuse.
Yeah.
And
So I think
we were talking about the probable top scorer with Jamie Vardy and Mo Salah. And what about Harry Kane? How many goals will he score in this season under Mourinho?
I don't
Yeah.
think he's in for a great chance because I think Spurs look like a club in crisis. Because
Yeah.
honestly, Harry Kane looked isolated during the entirety of the game. Uh, an amazing stat. He just had 2 touches. He just had 2 touches in the Everton penalty area. That's like for a player of his caliber, there's no creativity behind him. Like Heung-min Son, he started the game well, but then he faded off. There was Dele Alli who was substituted in the after the halftime. So I don't think there's proper creativity behind Harry Kane to feed him those balls.
Uh,
And
they uh,
Harry
they
Kane,
are uh, they are missing. I think Ericsson. They're
exactly.
missing Ericsson
Yeah.
There's no proper
Yeah.
placement of
Someone who
Eriksen.
can pull the
Correct.
strings in the midfield.
Yeah, yeah.
All the
because
midfielders
they
that
Uh,
because Dele
well,
Ali fades away in every match. Dele Ali fades away, man. Dele Ali is not
Very
expected of that.
unpredictable player, Dele Alli.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And you expect
He's
Son, an
inconsistent.
experienced guy.
Yeah.
You expect Son to play in matches like this. Lucas Moura does his bit, but Son, what is he doing? And there is no backup striker to Harry Kane in the
Yeah,
bench.
Mourinho looks to
So,
be bringing in a striker. He has been very vocal
yeah,
about it.
he's
He
very
wants a
vocal
striker
about
in this
it.
game. Yeah.
I think they will bring in one because they've
Okay,
sent Troy Parrott on loan.
let's see how things turn out. Okay, in other results, we are having Newcastle
Exactly.
who won convincingly 2-0 against West
Yeah.
Ham. Okay, very optimistic
Ham.
start for us. So let's see how the season goes. Now, finally, moving to the last part of the game week analysis, it will be a crime to not talk about this particular game because of the amount of crime that happened in this game. I'm talking about PSG versus Marseille. Like, what the hell happened there? Like
5 red
red
cards.
cards. I've never heard of 5 red. I don't think there has been a 5 red card match in, I guess, the last 5 or 6 years in at least the top leagues. Like
It was like a time bomb, man. It was like a time bomb ticking off and off and off, and it just exploded at the
And
end.
suddenly it burst out in the 95th minute. Yeah.
yeah, and like I mean, it was like in all fairness, the match itself did not have much spark. All right, it was a pretty boring match, and probably because maybe PSG were not playing with full squad. Some of the players are still COVID positive and whatnot. But still, the match did not have any spark of its own. But at the end of
Still,
it,
they had the
I mean,
squad that could have beaten Marseille.
that could have beaten Marseille. And Marseille has for the first time beaten PSG in a league match in last 8 years. Okay, and that's a big thing. Now, coming to the point, like if anybody remembers what happened in the 96th minute, a like complete brawl started with Leandro Paredes like he went
absolute
and punched.
WrestleMania episode.
That looked like a WrestleMania episode. That's true. Like there was this
Yeah.
punching and pushing and kicking and whatnot. And lastly, it got really ugly when Neymar came up in front of the camera and said like he got racially abused. So
Yeah.
guys, what's your take on that? Like, is it another of Neymar's feign acting? We all know how Neymar is.
No,
like,
it was quite visible in the camera also that he was verbally abused.
okay.
He was racially abused. It was visible in the camera also.
All right. I mean, like after
Uh,
analysis of the video footage, maybe they will be able to figure out what was exactly spoken at that time, as it happened during, say, the Anton Ferdinand and John Terry incident. But regarding the brawl, what do you think?
the thing was Paredes sparked it. You saw Paredes doing what he does exactly. He did it in the UCL as well. He whenever someone fouls him or his teammate, he gets sparked off. And Tuchel knew he was losing. He had to bring in the 18-year-old striker, the academic kid, the wonder kid, they say. But he was nowhere to be seen. He brought in Paredes to again combat with the ball, robust. I know he's a robust guy. He competes for every ball, makes good recovery. But why bring in Paredes at that point of time? It was because
But
everything was
Paredes
When
has
he
a
actually
bad history
needed
of
goals.
yes. Paredes has a bad history, yeah. But I don't
I
think Paredes
felt,
was the
I
right
felt,
solution at that point of time.
I felt Paredes, Gonzalez for Marseille, and Kurzawa. These three guys were responsible. Levin Kurzawa just kicked that
Yeah.
that Marseille player, and I think he deserved to get a 3-match ban. And if Gonzalez has racially abused Neymar, he deserves the ban as well. I think he should get more. I think 6-match,
Yeah,
12-match,
I
ban him,
think
ban him for the
think
season.
probably if a racial slur is confirmed after investigation, I see a ban for a season or something of that sort, especially
Yeah,
given
it will
the
be a
uproar.
long-term ban for sure.
Given the uproar that has been seen around the world with the Black Lives Matter movement and everything, I think now the board is
Because
going to the board is going to try
yeah,
to
I
make
feel many
exemplary punishment out of this incident.
Exactly, because I feel a prosecution may be underway, a
Yeah.
proper prosecution may be underway for this incident.
Yeah. And yeah, with that, my question to the panel is: are we finally seeing a season where PSG won't be dominating?
No, I think they're going to win the league easily. They're
No, no,
playing
no.
playing players.
For the first
No,
time
what
in
like
like 12 years, for the first time in 12 years, they have
They
lost
in a
2
relegation
matches.
zone.
No, that's a different thing. But like they lost 2 matches consecutively in the league.
Yeah.
First time in 12 years.
Yeah, but look at the players they were playing. Like they are mostly second string players, and so they've not got their proper squad back. And I think they're going to do well in the long run.
Okay.
Actually,
Yeah.
PSG need reinforcements. Okay, because Florenzi hasn't started. After Meunier left, they needed a right back. They bought in Florenzi. He hasn't started. Icardi and Mbappe were unavailable, and the other players were not fit. I don't think they were match fit for these 2 matches that they lost. But it's a bad start for Tuchel, man, because I felt Tuchel was a good man manager, but his tactics sometimes does lack that sting. So I think
Right.
Tuchel needs to buckle up.
Okay. So with this, we reach the end of the game week analysis. And before we move on to the next segment, Rishita, will you please enlighten us with the top transfers that happened in the past week?
I think there were a few contract extension of coaches like Marcelo Bielsa. He extended his stay at Elland Road till 2021, till the end of this season. It's a very big move, and Leeds fan will be very happy to see one more year. And I think maybe if they perform well, he stays another year or maybe a couple of years more. Then Nuno Espirito Santo has signed a new 3-year deal. So I think Nuno deserved it. And the Portuguese revolution, which people are saying is building, is working. They finished 7th twice. They qualified for Europe. Played 60 odd matches last season, and where they still remain competitive with a small string of players. And Nuno Espirito Santo deserves credit for that. But I think this will be difficult. This will be the most difficult season for Nuno at the Molineux. And so I think this was a very good announcement.
Okay.
After that, we have Chelsea going for the new goalkeeper, Edouard Mendy. Mendy is supposed to have his medicals, and he's going to sign as a Chelsea player by the end of this week, probably before the Liverpool match. We are not sure, but I think it will be done. And we have Mishi Batshuayi, who left on loan for Crystal Palace. He signed on a 1-year loan. He left because he doesn't get any game time with Werner, Tammy, and Giroud around. He was successful at he had a successful loan stint at Crystal Palace season back, and I think he gels well with Zaha and Ayu up front. Then we have Himanshu's goalkeeper. I think Martinez is signed for Aston Villa. He's completed his medicals and he's about to be announced. It's done, and he's signing on a 4-year contract. I think that Leno injury did help Martinez's price to be like raised by a few bucks, and it does help the Arsenal cause to buy Thomas Partey or our, and it's really a good move for that goalkeeper as well, because he has been loyal to Arsenal for 8 years and he came from Argentina with a lot of hope of playing in the Premier League, and he deserves to be the number one goalkeeper of any side. We have Florenzi. You know Florenzi signed on loan from Roma. I think there remains nobody at Roma right now who you can say to be a loyalist.
Yep.
So yeah, Alexander Florenzi has signed, and rest is Newcastle. Newcastle guys have signed on Isaac Hayden. Hayden has signed a 6-year deal, and Carlo has extended his contract by 5 years. I think
Isaac Hayden has signed a 5-year deal, and Darlow has signed a 4-year deal.
No, someone has signed a 6-year deal. I think Hayden signed a 6-year deal, probably. I'm not sure. Still,
okay,
just
we'll
check
confirm
it out.
that later.
But this shows Mike Ashley's ambition of giving the longer-term contracts, which you just spoke of a little while back. So it's making your club like Newcastle a lucrative buy for anyone, and they're having a sound like a batch of players to be with the new team or the new owners when they come in. They get a grasp of the situation. They even extended Longstaff,
contract, and also another transfer that is making the rounds is James Tarkowski to West Ham. Now they are demanding nearly 60 million pounds for him.
It's making a lot of noise.
Yeah, it's making a lot of noise. Let's see how it turns out. And I think from the other leagues, you have any information? Like German league and Italian league?
I thought the main information which is circulating is Sergio Reguilon from Real Madrid. I think he's close to signing for the Premier League side. Yeah, especially Manchester is in talks, but nothing is decided. And then from the German league, the biggest name is Thiago Alcantara, and Thiago is in talks with two clubs, Manchester and Liverpool. But Liverpool are leading the talks because they had a chat with his agent last week again, and Thiago Alcantara does like to play for Jurgen Klopp, and Jurgen Klopp likes him, but it's a financial situation which is holding the move back because he has a 1-year contract, and I think 6 months after in the next window he'll be available for a lower transfer fee or even on a free transfer. So Klopp is holding back on Thiago for now.
And still no update on Lautaro Martinez from Inter to Barcelona. Yes, Tamindada?
No, there's been a recent rumor suggesting them he might well be switching to Real Madrid.
But Fabrizio Romano had rejected the rumor, denied the rumor that he's not joining. There have been no bids from Real Madrid.
Okay.
So it's very uncertain.
I think Real Madrid don't sign a player.
No, they won't go for him.
Okay, let's see how it
Barcelona looking for Memphis Depay, I guess, more than Lautaro Martinez.
Yeah,
I think Roman.
Memphis Depay.
Yeah. More than.
And Wijnaldum.
So we can expect some really bizarre transfers to happen, because this has been the most strange and most bizarre transfer window in the history of all transfer windows. It's still up till I guess the middle of October. Let's see how things span out. We'll be updating the viewers about it. So that's pretty much it for the game week part. Now to move on to our last segment, which is the weekly game week meme review. All right. So basically, we review the top memes of the week and get your opinions about that. So I'll be sharing the screen right away. Just let me know if it's visible to you all.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. So this is the first meme that has gotten here. So I mean, it's just a normal Twitter banter that's happening between Batshuayi and West Ham, but this also speaks volumes about the number of players Chelsea have wasted on loan.
Chelsea as well.
Right. I mean,
Absolutely.
Batshuayi is an absolute world-class talent, and they just keep on loaning him year after year. So I don't see the point. I mean, how
My
long will
main
that go?
concern, yeah, my main concern for Chelsea this season is like how are they going to fit in players like a Mason Mount or a Tammy Abraham who did very well for Chelsea last season with the new stars incoming. So
Yeah.
Chelsea have wasted a lot of players on loan transfers and here and there. So
Yeah.
I really would like to know how I would really like to see Lampard how he fits all of them into the squad.
Okay.
Especially regarding this tweet, Mishi Batshuayi is an avid PES fan, so I think he stays in his zone, man. He's a fanatic, and I think he deserves this rant, and
He
especially because
himself is a meme lord.
yeah, he's a meme lord. He wears animes at breakfast tables in the team meetings, and also this guy he's crazy, man. He's crazy, and I think I wish him good luck at Palace, but I think this is expected of Mishi Batshuayi, man.
Okay, cool. Moving on to the next meme. So, to people out
These are
there,
the three magical words.
three magical words. Yeah. So, people out there who don't
Yeah.
know him, he is the Nostradamus of football transfers and football news as now overall. Fabrizio Romano. Man, what a guy!
Yeah.
What a guy! And just 27.
Hmm.
I trust him more than myself.
Okay,
He's the
I
go-to
thought
man.
I thought you trust him more than your girl, man.
Definitely.
I think we all do. And I mean, at the end of the day, we are all looking for someone like Fabrizio Romano, on whom we can.
If he says here we go, then he's definitely going.
Basically, man,
Like,
yeah, basically he's like the one stop for like football news transfers you want to know. You go to just Romano's timeline, Instagram or Twitter, and you get to know everything that's happening. So this guy has worked hard, man, to get where he is right now.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on to the next meme. Man, the match of crime.
This is hilarious.
We're
man.
just
Hilarious.
losing track of the cards.
Yeah, I mean, like this match should be, called back as an example for some other matches. Like in some other match, some team would get like 2 or 3 red cards, and people would be like, "Remember the PSG Marseille match? What happened there?" So this is a match
this
for
is
the
the
ages, I
episode.
think. This is epic instance. Moving on to the next
Yeah,
meme.
one time it was something like 2006, I think, World Cup, Netherlands versus Portugal. There were scenes like this back then
Yeah.
with so many red cards.
Yeah.
Reminds me of old classicos under Mourinho.
I mean, there was a notion right that in every Clasico, Ramos has to get a red card.
yeah, the
Ramos
Ramos
has
cycle
to
of
get a red card, yeah.
Yeah.
and he's shrugging off Carlos Puyol.
Cool. So okay, next meme. I mean, guys, really, Higuain, what is wrong with this
Actually,
player?
Eden Hazard lead.
I mean, like, just think of it. Higuain was such a high prospect during his Napoli days. He was scoring like anything, and then we saw
During his Real
his,
Madrid days, he was terrific.
and then after that he scuppered it for Argentina. Probably Argentina, the reason they never won the World Cup is Higuain. If you remember that infamous match where I don't know how many chances this guy missed. And after that, this move to Juventus, it made
And El Pipita, Higuain missed a 1v1 chance in the 2014 World Cup final, if you remember. He scored wide. Like he shot wide.
yeah. And
I think I think age has caught up to him, and I don't think it's this
Yeah,
made
he
me
had the
expect.
record of scoring, the
I
most
think
goals in
this
the
meme.
Serie A season.
I think this meme is reminiscent of Juventus's signing old guys and keeping them on high wages. This is perfect for them, man. They deserve this.
But really,
Yeah.
Beckham saved them. In all honesty, Beckham completely saved them because just think of it. And also with maturity, he was like a blasting player in his prime. But no, slowly he was wavering off. We saw it in last year's Champions League also. He was not performing to the peak. So I'm glad these people have left now. Let's see who they replace him with. If
I think Suarez option is a very realistic option right now.
And
replace
he would fit well in Juventus.
Yeah, especially
Yeah,
with his best friend
I think-
Chelini.
Yeah.
I don't feel, man. I like with Dybala around. why are you, man, like with Dybala around, you try to build a team, like they sold Moise Kean a year back, and it's bringing someone like Suarez. It's insensible, man. Actually, what the
No, no,
fuck?
no.
What are you doing, man?
Juventus actually has a fetish for old strikers. You don't know.
Probably. Okay, moving on to the next meme. Man, what's wrong with Eden Hazard?
Oh.
Why?
He likes Spain too much, man. Like,
And I
this
remember,
guy is on steroids. He's truly on steroids.
I think Real Madrid official page actually saw the meme circulating. So they recently posted a gym photo of Eden Hazard.
Okay. Maybe, I mean, I remember during his Chelsea days, Eden Hazard has returned to the training in a similar shape. I guess it was in his last season, right? And then he gave an interview like, I can gain weight very easily. I can lose weight very easily. I can lose 7 kilos in 2 days. He said it that way.
He says he likes eating out. He likes eating out.
Like me.
Let's see now. The La Liga starts from
It's just one or two good games, and everyone will be forgetting what was going on. So I don't think it
And he
will be much
himself
of a
said
big
that
concern.
judge me on my second season.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Let's see. The La Liga season starts this weekend. So this is the make or break season for Eden Hazard. And also, like, regarding the Gareth Bale situation, we haven't talked about it. Anybody wants to give in a quick thought where he's going?
I think Manchester United most probably his most likely destination.
Is he going on
Maybe
loan?
on loan. Yeah, maybe on loan.
Okay, cool.
Man, that Jadon Sancho saga is still continuing, and they are trying Gareth Bale on loan. That stings, man.
Jadon Sancho, it's 120 million, and they will be getting Gareth Bale for just 20 million euros if they want to buy him.
Okay, and for the last meme of the podcast, since we have already talked about Messi, I just felt not right not talking about this. So Cristiano Ronaldo, the GOAT. All right. So quick thoughts on what's going to happen to him this season. Like, what is left for him to achieve?
I think he will touch the 110 goal mark, no, the international goals like standard, like the highest one. So I think he'll do it by the Euros, and he sets a new pedestal for youngsters which comes in, and like you need to worship him, man. Like, he's the god, man. He's the superhuman, man. Like, I personally feel Leo Messi may be the best footballer on planet Earth, but this guy, he is the superhuman, man. He didn't have it in him to carry like for so many years with the injury happening. Priyanshu knows the injury which I'm talking to, but I think
this is the season. Yeah, this is the season he can take champion. He can take Juventus to the Champions League where they have been waiting for.
I am very much vying to see him versus Zlatan, who matches whom. Like, Zlatan is older than him, but I think the stature they carry at the club is like something very unique, and yeah, it's very interesting now to see what happens.
In this photo, I can see someone else too.
Who?
You can see him. You can see him. You just know.
Who's that? Is that Lucas Vazquez?
Yeah. He's not Lucas Vazquez, he's Lucas Godquez.
Yeah, we can see, man.
Yeah, Vasquez is getting also transferred to, I think, Qatar, making way for Mbappe in 2021. So let's see. So with that, I think we have reached towards the end of today's podcast. Thank you all for joining in. I hope you had a really good time. So we'll be tuning back in again towards the end of the week on Friday. We'll be giving you the game week preview and discuss about the different things, different games to look up to, different transfer rumors that are happening, and also different transfer that will happen across the week. As of now, we are recording it on Monday, so the Chelsea game hasn't happened. So we'll also be giving a little bit of analysis about that. So just follow us on our Facebook page, our Instagram page. It's linked down in the comment section. And I hope you guys join us again in our next episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. Guys, any closing thoughts?
If they have any comments, just like if you guys have any comments, just like if you have shared any thoughts regarding the matches, or you want to contradict or like put in some thoughts which we told you about, you think differently or you agree with us, just drop in your comments and we will get an idea of what type of content you like to see more, and what type of like thought aligns with us and what doesn't. So that we get a clear idea, because this is the first time we're doing it. Although I liked it very much, I would like appreciate anyone who is willing to like know more about what type of content we're bringing in later, to just drop in comments, subscribe to our channel, and I think it will be worthwhile.
And of course, hit a like. All right. So with that, panel, thank you so much for joining us. We'll meet again next week. I mean, we'll meet again this week only, but on the next episode.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, and have a good night. Bye bye.
Good night.